Hello there, Master Hellish here, and welcome back to my OpenTTD tutorial series. Today we'll be checking out the scenario editor. What is the scenario editor? Well, it's a way for you to make custom maps, custom worlds for you to play your OpenTTD game within. So, how do we get there? Well, nice and simple. There's a big button on the main screen called Scenario Editor. Hit that and you'll get straight in there. The first thing you might want to do with your scenario is to change the climate or the map size. So if we go over to land generation, this icon up here, this menu appears where you can create a new scenario. It gives you a blank one to begin with based on your previous settings. But if you go to create a new scenario, it asks you what type. Here you can choose one of the 4 climates, and you can either choose whether to have flat land or random land. If you just want flat land, you can choose your map size for that flat land in the options here. Choose the height of your flat land and then click flat land. If you want something a bit more complex, you can go to random land. If you choose this, it brings the world generation screen up, and this is the same screen that you get when you start a new game. So you can choose your map size and terrain and number of towns and so forth, as well as your starting date and your climate. Then you can hit generate and it will generate the land for you based on those settings. Now there is another way to get land into your scenario editor, and that's by going to the height map section. So you could load a height map and you can save a height map. I'm not going to cover that here in this video because I already have a dedicated video all about that. It's in this playlist and there's a link to this playlist in the video description, so you can check that one out afterwards. Highly recommend it. Now, in those land generation options here, you have the options to raise the land however you like, and of course also lower the land however you like. You've got the equalize tool as well to make nice flat little areas and raise things up to the same height as something else. Now, when you're using these tools, you also have these options to increase the size of your tool. So you can lower land within a certain larger area and raise it up too. We'll cover the other options later. So you've got your land generated. One of the next things you might want to do is place towns and cities, and that can be done with the town generation window. There's a few options to go through here. If you have new town, it will allow you to create a town on your cursor when you click. If you click random town, it will place a random town somewhere in the game. So if I click that there, you can see we have a random town placed in the game and it zooms the map to it. You can click many random towns and it'll put them all over the place. You see we've got loads of little towns all over the place now. You can actually choose a town name if you want to, or leave it random, and also choose the sizes of your towns. All of these we've been placing on medium ones, but if we want to do a bunch of large ones, we can click large, then many random towns, and those new towns will be larger ones. Just the same as if you want small and you click new town, you can place a new town with your mouse cursor as long as it's not too close to another one. There you go, and these will all be small. There's lots of them. There we go. Of course, now is also the option to whether to have a city or not. And you might say, what is the difference between a city and a large town? Well, a city is a town that grows twice as fast. So here we go. I've just placed this here, and you can see that this is a city. It's a really, really small one, but it will grow twice as fast as the towns. Now, so it's a bit counterintuitive. You can have small, medium and large cities. Now, if you want to, you can click random and many random towns. That will do many random towns of all the different sizes all over the place. Now, when you're doing this, you have the option to choose your road layout as well. Original, better, 2x2 and 3x3. Most people choose better or 3x3. If you did 3x3, let's find a 3x3 town. Here we go. Here's a new one. You can see that the streets there have a network of grid in a 3x3. This is sometimes preferable depending on your style, whether you like this sort of higgledy-piggledy sort of city or this sort of grid city. So set them up how you want. Maybe, you want to do lots of random towns and lots of 3x3 ones, and then click many random towns as many times as you see fit to get the density you require. Now, once you have placed a town, you can edit it. If you click on the city label, you can change the name, just similar to how you can when you're playing the game, but also you can do some other things as well. As well as seeing the town coverage, you can expand the town too, just by clicking this to grow the town into an even bigger one. And of course, if you decide you don't want it there, you can delete it too. Once you have your towns on, you can choose to have some industries. Now here we can see we've got the default industries and we can build them wherever we like. We can choose a particular industry and click build, and then boom, there it is. We can say, hey, there's a coal mine, I want a factory nearby, let's say I have one there, and let's go with an ore mine not too far away as well. You can do it manually like this and build them down, or you can create random industries all over the map, similar to the random towns. So if you click that and it says, are you sure? Boom. And you can see we've got farms, steel mills, more farms all over the map. And similar to the way that you can with the towns, you can keep clicking that button as well, and it will throw more and more industries in. Just remember, the base default settings in the game only allow one industry type per town, so there is kind of a maximum amount of towns that will generate, and you'll find that if you just keep clicking this, eventually you will get fewer and fewer new ones coming in, just because there's less and less available spots on the world for them to come in. We've now got 105 farms on this particular world. Now there is an option to also remove all industries. This is quite handy if you feel like you've made a mistake, done it wrong. You remove all the industries and then we can just create a few more random ones again. Now there is a certain amount of transport infrastructure you can add to your map before people play it. If you go to the road icon up here, you can see we had the road infrastructure, and we can actually add some new roads to the world. This can be quite good if you want to be able to connect up certain parts of the world with these kind of road networks before your players even start. Give them a head start, or maybe you have got some sort of lore in the game as to why these might already be there. But it's up to you whether you add these extra roads or not, including of course all the things like bridges and tunnels too. There you go. If you wanted to, you could just go around placing a load of tunnels and seeing if players then use them in the game. Now while you can add roads, you can't add any sort of shared rail network. It doesn't work like that. You can't pre-build any rail. But what you can do is work on the waterways. Again, waterways are shared between companies the same as roads. So if we come in here, we can add some extra canal onto the existing rivers that were generated by the land generation. You can see like this. We've got a nice bit of canal in there. We can even add some these things. I forgot what they're called off the top of my head. Locks, that's it. We can even add some locks, and of course we can add and extend the river network too. A lot of people feel that rivers should be in with the land generation tool because when you generate the lands, the rivers come in automatically, but rivers aren't there. Rivers are in waterways along with the canals, and you can also add in some aqueducts as well. Let's find a good place. There you go, there we go. So if you wanted to, you could provide your players with a water network for them to use before they even get on with anything else. Oh, that's no good. That's a bad one. Don't do it like that. But there you go. You get the idea. You can add water network and roads in before anybody even starts the game. Now the map is, you know, it's got its infrastructure and it's got its towns and cities, but it's quite bare, quite blank. In fact, some areas of the map, there's just absolutely nothing here. Well, you can add trees. Trees are fantastic, of course. You can choose your trees, so a specific tree, and place your tree down. Let's make sure we haven't got them set to invisible. There you go. Tree, tree, tree. Now, if you want to, you can do a grove of trees, which gives you a small cluster, or a forest of trees, which gives you a bigger cluster. And in addition to selecting a specific tree, for example these ones, you could choose trees of a random type. So you can have a forest of trees over here, and if you keep clicking, it does a random type each time. So if you do a double click, you end up with a forest of trees with 2 different types of trees. Over here, something similar, 1, 2, 3. We've got a forest of trees made up of 3 different types of trees. Now, if you want to be able to be a bit more creative, then you could choose one type of tree and then maybe a little bit of another type of tree. And of course, there is this random trees button, which puts random trees all over the map. But they're a little bit spread out. They're not in the clumps the same way that they are with the forests. So what you might want to do is trees are randomly everywhere, and then going and maybe add a few random forests. Some over here, some over here maybe, just to get a thicker area in some than others. And you might decide that that forest is going to be a particular type of forest. So here you go, look. We've got a particular type of forest down there. We can have a particular type of forest down here too. Notice not only can you do it by clicking if you prefer, but you can also do it by dragging too. You just get much denser forests that way. So if you want to, you can get a grove and just draw letters with trees, but you can get quite creative with your tree placement. Now, in addition to trees, there's a couple of other things. If we come back over to the land generation window, you can also add rocks like this, either by clicking or or dragging, or you can add these objects, lighthouses and transmitters. So if we go towards the town edge over here, we can click on lighthouses and add in a lighthouse there. You see, we can have them near the coast. I think you can have them, you know, as far inland as you like, really, which is a bit weird, but you can. And then the transmitters. Now, these can be a bit of a pain when you're playing. I find them a bit of a pain. They get in the way of my networks, but that's part of the game. Like, providing the challenge of having to get around these transmitters. So if you wanted to, because they're immovable objects without cheats, or what do they call the cheats now? The like creative options, sandbox options, you could just put a line of transmitters in and block a certain part of the map. Interesting ways of using them. Obviously they can fly over and they can tunnel under, but you could provide some challenges like this. Now, how your game will play will depend on how you've built your map and also the settings for that map. And also, the settings for the map can also determine how it is generated as well. If you go up to the cog and go to settings, there are a large number of settings in here for various different things. My top tips for dealing with these and checking through them is using the filter helps you find the setting you are looking for. Like, for example, you're looking for something to do with trains, type in train, you can find out the stuff about trains. Not everything in the settings is related to making a scenario, but some things are. And I've also got a video in this playlist about key settings which I think people should consider changing from the default. So maybe go and check that video out too. Now, when you're making a scenario, the one we've made here is a nice vanilla one. We've got our towns, a standard hills, and a standard industries. But if you wanted to create something different using some scripts or GRFs, you can do that. Now, it's not letting us change it here because you have to do that kind of before you generate. Okay, so if you want to, and you forgot to, you can go to the land generation options here, create a new scenario, and when you go for the random land, this is where you can then change your script and AI settings if you forgot previously. So let's just say, oh, I'm going to grab the first industry replacement set and generate. Then we can see we've got flat land again, but now when we go to the industries, we've got different industries to choose from. Now, if you want to know more about scripts and GRFs, I have, again, got a dedicated video about that in this series, so check that out. But suffice to say, you want to set these up before you create your scenario, or you're going to end up regenerating everything again. So once you've made your land, done all your rivers and your towns and your industries, and got your map exactly how you want it to be, how do you then use it? Well, you go to the save option and you save your scenario. Pop it into your scenario folder. I'm going to put mine as test in here and save it. Then you can either share that with people by going into your OpenTTD folder, into the scenarios folder, and getting that file, or you can just play it. So if we go back and abandon the scenario editor to the main menu, there is a button that says play scenario. If you click that, it will take you to your scenario folder in your OpenTTD folder, and there is your scenario. Note that it is a .scn file. That's the file type for the scenarios. Load them up, and then you're ready to play your game. Now, there is an important note to make about scenario files and save files. They're interchangeables to some degree. If you play a game like I'm doing now, place down a piece of track, let's do it near the top corner so we know where it is, like that, and you start a company, and then you save your game, you can go into there and say, hey, this is my test save. And when you save it, I put Dave. There we go. Oh, it's to save now. There we go. And when you save it, it does it as a save file, not as a scenario file, but you can rename the save extension. If you go into the documents folder where your OpenTTD file is and go into the save section, you will see that test save with a .sav. You can copy that and put it in your scenario folder and then just rename it to the SCN. Now remember, if you're using Windows, you may have to change the setting which allows you to show file extensions. There we go. And once you've done that, you can go into your OpenTTD, go into your scenario editor, load the scenario file, and you can see that that track is actually there. So it is technically possible to add track to a scenario like that, and it is technically possible to come in to your save, and let's just say, oh, I wanted to adjust the scenario so that there was some extra land around the track that I'd built in my networks, right? And then I can go, okay, save my scenario, and I'm going to save it as a different number 2, go rename it, load the game. And here I've renamed it back to SAV, and when you load it, you'll see that you have the land height changes that you did in the scenario. Now, be very careful doing this sort of thing. You can very easily mess your game files up. Save a different copy. Now, if you want to be able to change what GRFs you're using in a scenario in the middle of editing it, or if you've converted a game save to a scenario so you can change what GRFs are in your game as you're playing, it is technically possible. I've made a separate video about that. You have to be quite careful because you can break your game save. So again, that separate video is in this playlist, and the link to the playlist is in the video description. So there we have it. That's a rundown of what the scenario editor is and how you can do the things within it. Of course, when you start incorporating interesting sort of shapes, height maps, and even GRFs into your maps too, you can make some really interesting games to play. If you want to share them with me and my community, you can come along to my Discord and drop the link to your scenario in the OpenTTD channel, and I'm sure some people will take a look. It might even be used in an upcoming viewers game of mine. But that's going to be all for now. If you have any thoughts, ideas, and of course questions, do pop them down in the comment section, and I will see you next time. Thank you very much for watching, take care, and for now, goodbye.